Welcome to the second part of our interview with Mr. Maximilian Urban, our guest in the 7th season of the Smart Talks with Johan. Addition to his role as Information Security Officer, Maximilian is also Vice Chair of the Eurelectric Working Group Sustainable Network Technology and represents the Austrian DSOs in the Distribution and Market Facilitation Committee. He is representative neither Austria Netz at EDSO for Smart Grids and chairs the task force for cybersecurity. He participates also in the EU DSO entity within the expert group Data Interoperability and the joint working group with EDSO. Maximilian, welcome again.
Thank you very much.
Based on this experience, what is your opinion? How the current and upcoming regulations impact the way utility security is implemented, and do you think they are sufficient?
Yes, I think they are sufficient, but let me explain regulation I'm thinking of. First of all, the NIS directive, NIS 1 directive, as well as the NIS 2 directive on European Union level caused the NIS 1 law in Austria, and in only a few member states, the NIS 2 law. Most of the member states failed to have a NIS 2 law, so they are in a phase of catching up to get that. The NIS 2 law itself is already an addition and needs additional measures to the NIS 1. The NIS 1 law covers, at least in our case, in our company, covers the system operation where we deliver the energy, like SCADA systems, remote terminal units, and the communication in between. And the NIS 2 law says, well, the whole company should be covered. Means we have to also think of our meter to cash process from meter measurement at the customer site, also via a separate means of communication into the billing engine to get out a bill out of that, which we then present to the customers. But there are much more regulation on that. There's the Cyber Resilience Act, and in the first beginning we thought this will not touch us, but that seems to be wrong, because the Cyber Resilience Act especially forces suppliers of equipment or users and let's say sellers of equipment in the European Union, which is not made in the European Union, to have spare parts, to have patches, updates, upgrades available for, I guess, 20 years after this product has been put into operation, to keep security issues. And we then thought, well, this hits our suppliers, but no, it can also hit us. For example, the smart meter equipment, which we had in our first session, partly comes from outside the European Union, and then it's us which are the implementers in the European Union for this equipment. So we have all this spare part and patch availability responsibility on us. So this is where we have to think of run an additional functionality and additional service for our own equipment we need. And then there is the Resilience of Critical Infrastructure Guideline, RCI, where we also see that the risk analysis taken from NIS gets another touch, mainly towards the physical equipment, towards the perimeter, to the buildings, let me say it like that. Not only look for IT, OT risks, but also for physical terrorism. Terrorism is not mentioned in the NIS so far, but it's mentioned in the RCI guidelines. And I had recently a very interesting talk with my colleagues in my company, and they said, well, we use drones. And I said, well, cool. But these drones then are a cybersecurity issue. They are a cybersecurity asset, and we have to take measures on that. No, why? They don't use information. I said, well, they took pictures. They take pictures. Yeah, okay, then let's talk about the pictures. And then I said, well, what if the control software is compromised and somebody steers these drones into our equipment, like a substation, which is an outdoor equipment, and which is more or less not secured from there, from above. We have, of course, alarm systems and video screening if somebody comes from the earth, but not from the air. And then said, oh yes, we have to think of that before. Yeah, and this is what I meant. I think this is quite efficient to get a different look, or let's say an additional look to all the equipment we use, rather than just, do we get a man in the middle, or have we lost credentials for somebody getting into our IT systems?
Okay, but tell me for NIS 1 and NIS 2, for these laws, are these laws implemented in the other member states of EU? Do you have knowledge about that? I understand in Austria it is...
not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet, yeah.
Not yet NIS 2, but
Not
NIS
yet.
1, yes.
Yes, exactly, yeah. So from what I've heard is from the 27 European countries, 6 have implemented a NIS 2 law in time, and in time means by 17th of October 2024. The guideline, which was released in January 23, said until October 24 you have to have a NIS law. So this leaves 21 countries obviously without a NIS 2 law. We have a draft which is available and which we also already know from the NIS authority, but you might know that we had national elections in September 24, and before that the law was not accepted, and after that we had kind of negotiations to form a new government. We have that for 1 week now, so I'm very sure that we will get this NIS 2 law very soon.
Do your company wait for law to implement that, or you start to implement that?
No, we don't wait. We don't wait. This would be a mistake, definitely. Yeah. So we know the draft, and we started to implement NIS 2 measurements by 2023, means 1.5 years ago, because from what I've learned and what I've seen is that the information security management system we have in the system operation covers the minor number of configuration items, the minor number of employees, and the bigger number of configuration items like the smart meter. We have around about roughly 1 million. And the bigger number of employees is in the NIS 2 area, means is in the rest of the company, which we have now to take into the information security management system. And I urged my management to continue the NIS 2 project under my management, although we don't see a law yet. I mean, although we don't have a law, but we see what's written in there, and we know what's coming. So we continue that, and there is no ramp up time when the law is in implementation.
Okay, but I understand that you make your operation network physically separated, which then protects you from some foreign attacks from some hackers, etc. And also you have the test for the equipment, that equipment do not have some separate channels, communications, that only communication channel you control. So then the question is about your employees. And how do you see that? How you protect from employees?
Well, we saw in the past that the biggest 2 risks we saw was always better. So better software we take into and put into operation, without any testing by ourselves. So that is why we started to test it 100% of the software we get. We test beforehand in our sandbox before it goes into operation. And the second is failures of people. So we started regular awareness training, every year awareness training for our personnel. And we now have kind of role competence metrics where we put the education request for each role into our training plan, so that the person fulfilling the role gets the training he or she needs to fulfill the work. And this is also kind of new because in general this was done before, but we now have very special roles like system administration on a switch, system administration on a firewall, system administration on a SCADA server, system administration on the public key infrastructure for a smart meter, for example. So there's very much assets and different systems, and we need the people to be trained to be able to work on that with the least possible amount of failures.
But do you also, with a lot of that roles, want to avoid any dependency that one man have a big control?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's what we do with our network, with our grid segregation in smaller pieces. We do also with the personnel. So we have experts, specialists, and we try to get them as good as possible and in the expert area. Then there, of course, as we are a big organization, we have redundancies in personnel as well. But to have this, what we call head monopolists, we try to avoid. This is completely dangerous. Even if these persons are on vacation, not to say if they have an accident and have to go to hospital or whatever.
Or bad intention.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And looking ahead, how do you see the evolution of cybersecurity in utilities over the next years? And what should industry stakeholders prioritize?
The first step the first step into our future is to enlarge the scope of the information security management system. We have system operation in the scope yet, and for the NIS 2 we do the enlarge the scope also from system operation to the meter to cache process, and there it's the challenge is that we get a lot of configuration items into the ISMS, which we didn't have before, as an amount of number. For example, our field operations, we are very rural area in Lower Austria, so we have a very expanded operation with decentralized service spots, and we have more than 700 people working in the field of Lower Austria, which we have to train and get aware to cybersecurity. And we have 950,000 smart meters in the field, which are configuration items which we didn't have in the scope before. In the scope, we had the SCADA system plus the remote terminal units. It's roughly around about 10,000 configuration items, but now we get 1 million in addition to it. We had 100, more or less 100 employees before. Now we have more than 700 employees, which we have to train and which we have to get into awareness. And this is a big step to get the procedure, which we have already there for system operation, into the meter to cache operation, and to get the people trained. And then what I learned, the interesting thing is know your assets. So these departments, which now come newly into ESMS, they having a hard time with me as I ask them, tell me all your assets, because on the assets we put the risk measures, and before we put the risk measures, I want to see which assets are on risk. Therefore, we identified the smart meter as being a risk asset. So know all your assets that we can run on risk analysis. And as I said, a smart meter. We now in Austria are defining a smart meter 2.0. The smart meter is different from the Ferraris meter we had before. Only 8 years allowed to be in the field, and then it has to be replaced completely.
8 years.
8 years, yeah. Because it's a digital equipment, and after 8 years it loses the calibration certificate. Together with the communication certificate, and then we are going to replace it. Rather than to reissue the certificates, we take that out, because after 8 years technology has moved on. We take it out and put in the new system. So we discuss Austria-wide smart meter 2.0, and these smart meters will then be in operation from 2030 on. And consultancy told me that with 2092 we expect to have quantum computing that strong that they can crack the cryptographic certificates, means the public key infrastructure, with a calculation time less than 1 day. So we have to be aware of that from 2029 on, our encryption is not valid anymore because it can be cracked. So we now have to think of, and that is something I have to discuss with my colleagues, now we have to think of how to get the smart meter 2.0 architecture post-quantum ready. Means ready for a time where quantum computing will be that strong that it will crack our certificates.
Yeah.
And that's completely new thinking. For the guys, they're just thinking of a smart meter 2.0. They said, well, hey, couldn't be that complicated. But thinking of smart meter as a configuration item, and the certificate can be cracked once it is in operation, what should we do then, architecture-wise and handling-wise? And we have to think now, it's like moving or trying to hit a target or a problem you don't know in all of its extensions right now.
Yeah, yes, it is very interesting. For me, first, it is interesting that only 8 years is life period for digital meter. I heard that now first time, because it was 15 years. But I understand that you mainly expect that because communication technology will be changed.
No, and calibration.
And calibration.
So we have a very strong calibration law. So Austria and Germany are more or less the calibrating countries in Europe.
So it is law.
It's a calibration law, and it said that the Ferraris meter was allowed to be in the field up to 40 years.
40 years.
40 years. Because you had to test every 8 years, but not every meter, but only one specimen out of a sample. And if the individual smart meter connected to your place, for example, never were figured out or identified as one of these calibration specimens, you could have it. Yeah. This now changed with the digital meters. It's the digital meter saying the calibration is that complicated that it has to be recalibrated every 8 years.
8 years. It is law.
It is law, not a specimen, but the whole. Yeah. And then we said, if we have to take it out and calibrate it.
It is law only in Austria or also in Germany?
In Germany, it's not the same law, but as strong as in Austria. Yeah, and from what I know from my Brussels experience, so we are the two countries dealing the most hardest way with calibration.
Okay, so you expect to return to the question about the future and evaluation in cybersecurity and utilities. You see the main problem with quantum computing and big power of that computers, because they will be able to
decrypt what we encrypt
in one day.
in one day.
Yeah, yeah,
And we will not change the keys day by day.
yeah, yeah. Okay, you will still have a physical disconnection from the. It will be some kind of protection,
Yeah.
but okay, I understand that it is not. You don't feel good if you know that someone can for one day decrypt your passwords.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it comes, as was what we said before, Cyber Resilience Act.
Yeah.
If this equipment is not being built in European Union,
Mm-hmm.
we are the suppliers of that equipment if we buy it from outside, and we have to be responsible that cybersecurity issues and measures are being kept.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
With that challenge of maybe, we don't know, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe quantum computing being able to crack the certificates.
Mm-hmm. Do you start any discussions in working groups? You are active in these associations about this problem, or it is just beginning?
Well, I learned it in the last days here in Austria. I will go tomorrow to our cybersecurity group of ETSO.
Mm-hmm.
And I will have a word about that, and I will tell that to get awareness to the people. And it's always the same. Nobody is happy being told that we have to think of an architecture which is post-quantum, because this is a lot of thinking now and a lot of resources then, maybe.
Yeah.
So nobody's happy with that. And what I've learned in the past is tell the people, tell the story, somehow make them sure that we will handle it, but start thinking now, not in 8 years of that, then it's too late. That's the same what we did with the Netz Noe law. We continued our Netz 2 project independently if the law is already in operation in Austria or not.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And the last question for you, what is the most important lesson you learned throughout your career?
I would say stay curious and learn how things work. And let me give you an example, the cybersecurity example. As I started to work with cybersecurity in 2013, when there was the voluntary agreement with our regulator, I didn't know much about it. Like any other. Nobody did know much about it. But I was very curious, I was interested, and I told the people what will come up. Nobody liked me in the very beginning because what I said before, they thought, well, much resources, much money. What is the business case with it? The business case is we will not be compromised. Tell that a CEO, he will not be happy, because they want to make a business, not try to be stable. But that is the business case, So stay curious, learn how things work, even if the other things you are a burden for them and do not help, because at one point in time they will learn, well, this guy can help us. And that was, I would say, the best compliment I got after Netz 2.1 project was finished, that one of my bosses, who was very critical to my work, or at least to the ISMS itself, said in the final party when we were celebrating being ready, he said, I learned that. You told me something, Max, you told me something which I didn't want to hear, because I counted it will cost me a lot, but now I understand what you have said and what you did, and I think it's a good thing. And that's the best learning.
Okay, it is good advice for young engineers.
Not only for the young, also for experienced ones. If you enter a new field, learn how it works and tell the others.
For all engineers and people generally. Okay, thank you for joining us and sharing your experience. And This concludes our conversation with Mr. Maximilian Urban, and this has been a truly insightful and inspiring discussion on cybersecurity in the utility sector. Stay with us for more expert conversation in the 7th season of Smart Talks with Jovan.